The Whispering Woods. The legend of Whispering Woods. In the heart of the Pacific Northwest lies an expansive forest known as Whispering Woods. Locals avoid it, speaking in hushed tones about the strange occurrences and unexplained disappearances that have plagued the area for centuries. According to legend, the forest is haunted by the spirits of those who ventured too deep and never returned. Whispering Woods is said to be alive with whispers that call out to wanderers, luring them deeper into its shadows. Many believe the whispers are the voices of the lost souls, trying to guide the living away from the same fate, while others think they are the seductive calls of malevolent spirits. Despite the warnings, the allure of Whispering Woods has always drawn the curious and the brave. Chapter 1. The trip begins. On a cool autumn day, four friends from a nearby town decided to spend a weekend camping trip in Whispering Woods. Lily, the adventurous spirit, had always wanted to explore the forest. Her boyfriend, Mark, was a skeptic who didn't believe in ghost stories. Sarah, Lily's best friend, was intrigued but cautious, and Jake, Mark's cousin, was always up for a thrill. "Come on, it'll be fun," Lily urged as they packed their gear into the car. "Think of it as an adventure. We might even debunk some of those silly myths." Mark rolled his eyes but agreed. "Fine, but if we get lost, don't blame me." They arrived at the edge of the forest just as the sun began to set. The towering trees cast long shadows, and the air grew cooler. They found a clearing near the entrance and set up their tents, unaware that the forest was already watching them. Chapter 2. The First Night. As night fell, they gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and laughter. The crackling firelight cast eerie shadows on the trees, making the forest seem alive. "Has anyone ever heard the legend of Whispering Woods?" Sarah asked, her voice low and serious. "Of course," Jake replied. "But it's all just superstition. Ghosts and spirits don't exist." Lily glanced around nervously. "Still, it's kind of creepy, isn't it? All those people who went missing." Mark put an arm around her shoulders. "Don't worry, babe. We're safe. It's just a bunch of old wives' tales." But as the night wore on, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The wind rustled the leaves, creating an almost human-like whispering sound. It felt as though the forest itself was whispering secrets to them. Chapter 3. The Whispers Begin. The next morning, they decided to hike deeper into the forest. The sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, creating a serene and almost magical atmosphere. They took pictures, joked around, and enjoyed the natural beauty of Whispering Woods. But as they ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder. At first, they were faint, like the rustling of leaves, but soon they became distinct, like voices calling out their names. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, stopping in her tracks. "Hear what?" Mark replied. "It sounded like someone calling my name," Sarah said, her eyes wide with fear. "It's just the wind," Jake said dismissively. "Let's keep moving." But the further they went, the more persistent the whispers became. Each of them began to hear their names being called, sometimes softly, other times urgently. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees growing denser and the light dimming. Chapter 4. Lost. As the day wore on, they realized they were hopelessly lost. The trail they had been following had vanished, and the forest seemed to twist and turn in confusing ways. Their phones had no signal, and their compasses spun wildly. "We need to turn back," Mark said, his voice edged with panic. "We've been walking in circles." Lily nodded, trying to remain calm. "Let's retrace our steps. Maybe we can find our way back to the campsite." But as they turned back, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They echoed through the trees, seeming to come from all directions. "This isn't right," Jake said, his bravado fading. "We should have reached the clearing by now." Night began to fall, and the forest grew darker. The friends huddled together, their fear palpable. The whispers became almost deafening, drowning out their thoughts. Chapter 5. The First Disappearance. In the middle of the night, Sarah woke up to a voice calling her name. She sat up, peering into the darkness. The fire had died down, and the forest was eerily quiet, save for the persistent whispering. "Sarah, come to me." She stood up, drawn to the voice. It was familiar, comforting even. She took a few steps away from the camp, the voice growing louder. "Sarah." Without thinking, she wandered deeper into the forest, the voice guiding her. The trees seemed to part for her, creating a path. She followed it, entranced, until she vanished into the shadows. When the others woke up the next morning, Sarah was gone. They called out for her, but there was no response. Panic set in as they searched the area, but there was no trace of her. Chapter 6: The Descent into Madness. Days passed, and the remaining 3 friends grew more desperate. They rationed their food and water, but their supplies were dwindling. The whispers never ceased, growing more urgent and insistent. Mark began to unravel. He would talk to himself, muttering about the whispers and the voices. He insisted that they were being watched, that something was following them. Lily tried to stay strong, but fear gnawed at her. She missed Sarah and couldn't shake the feeling that they were all doomed. Jake, usually the most level-headed, was becoming paranoid. He saw shadows moving among the trees and heard footsteps behind them. One night, Mark snapped. He accused Jake of plotting against them, convinced that the whispers were trying to turn them against each other. In a fit of rage, he attacked Jake, and the 2 men fought, their screams echoing through the forest. Lily tried to intervene, but Mark was beyond reason. He pushed her aside and lunged at Jake, who grabbed a rock and struck Mark in self-defense. Mark fell to the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Chapter 7: The Second Disappearance. Jake and Lily were left to fend for themselves. They tended to Mark's injuries as best they could, but he was unresponsive. They built a makeshift stretcher and carried him through the forest, hoping to find a way out. But the whispers were relentless. They heard Sarah's voice among them, pleading for help. It was as if the forest was taunting them, playing with their minds. One night, as they huddled around a small fire, Jake heard a voice calling his name. He stood up, his eyes glazed. "Jake, come to me." Lily tried to stop him, but he was in a trance. He walked into the darkness, the voice guiding him. She called out to him, but he didn't respond. He disappeared into the forest, leaving Lily alone with the unconscious Mark. Chapter 8: The Final Confrontation. Lily was now alone, her fear turning into sheer terror. She stayed by Mark's side, praying for a miracle. The whispers tormented her, filling her mind with dread. One night, she woke up to find Mark gone. She searched frantically, but there was no sign of him. She was utterly alone, the forest closing in around her. Desperate and delirious, she wandered through the forest, the whispers her only companion. They grew louder, more insistent, until she could no longer distinguish them from her own thoughts. "Come to us, Lily." She stumbled upon a clearing where a massive, ancient tree stood. Its gnarled branches reached out like skeletal fingers, and the whispers seemed to emanate from its very core. Lily approached the tree, feeling a strange compulsion. She reached out and touched its bark, and the whispers stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the tree began to tremble, and a figure emerged from its trunk. It was Sarah, but her eyes were empty, and her face twisted in an expression of agony. "Help me, Lily." Sarah's voice was a hollow echo. Lily screamed and tried to run, but the tree's branches wrapped around her, pulling her closer. She felt herself being absorbed into the tree, her body merging with the ancient wood. Chapter 9: The Revelation. As Lily's consciousness faded, she realized the truth. Whispering Woods was a living entity, a malevolent force that fed on the souls of those who entered it. The whispers were the voices of the trapped souls, trying to warn the living or lure them deeper into the forest's grasp. Her last thought was of her friends, their faces twisted in fear and despair. They were all part of the forest now, their souls entwined with the ancient tree, forever whispering in the darkness. Chapter 10: New Arrivals. Years passed, and Whispering Woods remained untouched by time. The legends grew, and the forest's reputation as a place of unspeakable horror spread far and wide. New thrill-seekers and adventurers would occasionally venture into the woods, drawn by the allure of the unknown. And one by one, they would hear the whispers, feel the pull of the ancient tree, and vanish into the shadows. The forest would never be satisfied, always hungry for more souls. And so, the cycle continued, the whispers growing louder with each new victim. In the heart of Whispering Woods, the ancient tree stood tall, its branches heavy with the weight of countless souls. And the whispers, the endless whispers, would forever echo through the forest, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked within. Whispering Woods had become a place of eternal torment, a haunted forest where the souls of the lost would never find peace. And those who dared to enter would soon become part of the legend, their whispers joining the chorus of the damned. The forest was alive, a living nightmare that fed on fear and despair. And as long as there were those who sought to uncover its secrets, Whispering Woods would continue to claim its victims, one by one. Chapter 11, A Glimmer of Hope. Despite the forest's notorious reputation, there were those who believed in breaking the curse. A team of paranormal investigators, led by Dr. Evelyn Stone, arrived in the nearby town determined to uncover the truth behind Whispering Woods and free the trapped souls. They were armed with the latest technology and ancient knowledge, hoping to succeed where others had failed. Dr. Stone had spent years researching haunted locations and had heard whispers, ironically enough, of Whispering Woods' unique and malevolent nature. Her team consisted of 4 members: Jack, a tech expert; Maria, a medium; Sam, a historian; and Lucas, a skeptic turned believer after experiencing his own paranormal encounter. "Are you sure about this, Evelyn?" Lucas asked as they prepared their equipment. "This place has a reputation for a reason." Evelyn nodded, her determination unwavering. "If there's even a chance we can help those trapped souls, we have to try. The legends speak of an ancient tree at the heart of the forest. That's our target." Chapter 12, The Journey Begins. The team ventured into the forest just as dusk settled, the golden light filtering through the canopy. They followed a well-worn path initially, but as they moved deeper, the whispers began. The team had come prepared, wearing noise-canceling headphones to block out the distractions. However, the whispers seemed to penetrate their defenses, faint and persistent. "Do you hear that?" Maria asked, her voice shaking slightly despite the headphones. Jack nodded, adjusting his equipment. "It's like they're trying to talk directly to us. Stay focused. Remember, we're here to help." As they proceeded, they began to notice signs of previous visitors, abandoned tents, scattered belongings, and the occasional shoe or piece of clothing. It was a grim reminder of those who had never returned. Chapter 13, First Encounter. As night fell, they reached a clearing and set up camp. Jack monitored their equipment, noting fluctuations in electromagnetic fields and temperature drops, classic signs of paranormal activity. Maria attempted to communicate with the spirits, her face pale and tense. "They're here," she whispered. "They're all around us, watching, waiting. They know why we're here." Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and an eerie mist rolled in. From the shadows emerged a ghostly figure, a young woman in tattered clothing, her eyes hollow and pleading. It was Sarah. "Help us," she whispered, her voice a chilling echo. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice calm and reassuring. "We're here to help. Can you guide us to the tree?" Sarah nodded, her ghostly form flickering. "Follow me. But beware, the forest will try to stop you." Chapter 14, The Descent into Darkness. Guided by Sarah's spirit, the team ventured deeper into the forest. The path grew more treacherous, the trees closing in as if trying to block their way. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and each team member felt the forest's malevolent presence pressing down on them. "We're getting close," Sarah said, her voice strained. "But it's getting stronger. Stay together." Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way, and they tumbled into a hidden ravine. Injured and disoriented, they struggled to regroup. Evelyn's leg was badly sprained, and Jack had a deep gash on his forehead. "We can't stop now," Evelyn insisted, her voice filled with pain and determination. "We have to keep moving." With Sarah's guidance, they climbed out of the ravine and pressed on, the ancient tree looming ever closer. The forest seemed to pulse with anger, the whispers now a deafening cacophony. Chapter 15, The Ancient Tree. Finally, they reached the heart of the forest. The ancient tree stood before them, its massive trunk twisted and gnarled, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The whispers emanated from the tree, a chorus of tortured souls. "This is it," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "This is where it all ends." Maria stepped forward, her eyes closed in concentration. "I can feel them. So many souls, trapped in suffering. We have to perform the ritual." The team had prepared a ritual based on ancient texts, hoping to break the curse and release the trapped souls. They formed a circle around the tree, lighting candles and reciting the incantations. The air grew thick with energy, and the tree began to tremble. Chapter 16, The Battle. As the ritual reached its climax, the forest erupted into chaos. Ghostly figures emerged from the shadows, their faces twisted in agony. The ground shook, and the whispers turned into screams. The ancient tree's branches lashed out, trying to disrupt the ritual. "Hold on!" Evelyn shouted, her voice barely audible over the din. "We can't stop now." Jack and Lucas fought to keep the equipment running, while Maria continued the incantation, her voice unwavering. Sam provided historical context, directing them through the ritual steps with precision. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the tree itself, a malevolent spirit, the source of the curse. It was an ancient guardian, bound to the tree, feeding off the souls it trapped. "You cannot defeat me," the spirit hissed, its voice a blend of countless whispers. "This forest is mine." Evelyn stepped forward, holding a talisman. "We are here to free these souls. Your reign of terror ends now." The spirit lunged at her, but the talisman glowed with a blinding light, forcing it back. The team continued the ritual, the energy building to a crescendo. Chapter 17, The Release. With a final incantation, the ritual reached its peak. The talisman blazed with light, and the ancient tree began to crack and splinter. The screams of the trapped souls filled the air, but they were screams of release, not pain. The malevolent spirit roared in defiance, but it was too late. The tree shattered, and a wave of energy exploded outward, sweeping through the forest. The ghostly figures dissolved into the light, their souls finally free. The forest grew silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The whispers ceased, replaced by a serene stillness. The aftermath. The team emerged from Whispering Woods, battered and exhausted but triumphant. The curse had been broken, and the forest was no longer a place of fear. The local townspeople hailed them as heroes, and the legend of Whispering Woods became one of redemption and hope. Dr. Evelyn Stone and her team had not only freed the trapped souls but also proved that even the darkest places could be reclaimed. Their experience in Whispering Woods became a beacon for others, inspiring new generations of paranormal investigators to seek out and confront the unknown. And though the whispers had ceased, the memory of those who had suffered and those who had freed them would live on, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and the unyielding human spirit.
Don't forget to subscribe.